The gospel this week, we continue in our bread series from John. And Jesus reiterates at the beginning that he is the bread of life, which is we heard last week. But here, the crowd begins to question Jesus more strenuously. They become argumentative, even hostile with him. They say, "What do you mean you are the bread that came from heaven? You're Jesus. I know your parents. That's impossible." Now, I know last week I was defending the crowd a bit, and now it's getting a little harder to do this week as they get more hostile. But it's not all their fault. The crowd misses the point again. Many of these people know Jesus. They know his parents. They say, "Is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How can he now say, 'I have come down from heaven'?" Theoretically, the people who know you the best are supposed to believe in you the most, right? And be the most supportive, but not the case here. The people he knew before he began teaching and healing do not welcome him with open arms. Instead, they question his authority. They wonder how a lowly carpenter can perform these signs and then claim to be from heaven. And they're just not receptive to Jesus' message at this point. They wouldn't listen to him because they couldn't see past the image of him that they already had in their minds. To them, he would always be the carpenter, the son of Mary and Joseph. And it's totally fine to have questions and to question authority. I mean, it's good to do that often. But when you won't listen to the answer because of stubbornness, that's not a good thing. And that's what the crowd is doing today. Another reason the crowd is so stubborn is because of their tradition. Now, Jesus is using a bread metaphor because it is familiar to the people, but also that makes it more complicated. Because Moses fed the people in the wilderness with the bread from heaven, which is the manna. And the point of the manna story isn't about eating at all. It's about trusting in God. Maybe that's something that the people had forgotten at this point. But this is a story that all the Jewish people would have known, and that's why Jesus uses the bread metaphor. But that's also part of the problem. Because when he says, "I am the bread of heaven," the people reply, "No, you're not. The manna in the wilderness is the bread from heaven." So the crowds are so used to the story that they can't see past it. Their context is holding them back. So they start to grumble and complain, which is never good. Jesus is trying to use something they already know to tell them something new, right? This isn't about the ancestors in the desert. It's about God active in the here and now. It's about the living God in the present. It's not about the past, it's about the future. And the past is what is holding them back from really hearing Jesus today. Tradition is a wonderful thing. Trust me, I wouldn't be wearing this outfit if I didn't love tradition. Jesus isn't trying to discount their traditions or beliefs. He's actually trying to use them as a base to expand them into something new and wonderful. Because you can't hang on to the old ways forever, or you'll become stagnant. That equals death of an institution anyway. You have to change and adapt to the world as it changes, because the world never stays the same. And belief in God isn't a stagnant thing either. Like any relationship, it's ever growing and ever changing. Caroline Lewis explains, quote, "Theology is a verb, not a noun. God is a being, not a thing. The static nature we far too often assume about God is its own idolatry," end quote. So our traditions, they keep us grounded, but if we become too rigid with them, they end up holding us back. And that's what's going on with the crowd. Jesus says he comes from God, and they say, "No, he didn't. He came from Mary." He says, "I'm the bread from heaven then. I'll explain it in a different way." And they go, "No, you're not. That's manna." Problem is the familiarity. They know him, so they can't comprehend that he could ever be more than just a carpenter. The thought was that God is supposed to come down in clouds and fire and whirlwinds and earthquakes, right? Not in this man who I watched grow up, who as a kid played with my kids. He can't possibly be special. But that's part of the point. God comes to us in Jesus to show that God is with us in the everyday, in the ordinary things. God uses ordinary things of life to reach us. We are regular folks, and God uses us to reach out to people in the world. God uses bread, perhaps the most ordinary food, to reach out to the crowds and to us. And God uses, in our context, the wafers and the wine to reach out to us. Because trust me, our wafers and wine are very ordinary. Pre-consecration. You just go buy them. Nothing special. But through God, these ordinary elements become the body and blood of Christ. And they become sacraments. They become special, real, tangible signs of God's grace and love for us. And that's the same with us. The crowd in the gospel is stubborn. They get angry because they don't understand. And on some level, they don't want to understand. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to change. They're stuck in the we've never done it that way mindset. So then they miss the whole point of Jesus. They miss his love and his message and the power that he has to heal and bring peace. But maybe even sadder is that they missed the chance to be agents of his message in the world. Because that's the real blessing that we all have. Everything we do and everything we say in the world should represent our beliefs and represent God. And then on a smaller level, our community here at St. Anne's. So in all that we do in the world, what kind of impression are we making? God doesn't say that we have to be perfect in order to do God's will. Actually, it's kind of the opposite. If you've ever read the life stories of a lot of these saints that we honor, they were very far from perfect. We can't let our own insecurities and preconceptions and confusion or feelings of ordinariness block us from going out and changing the world. That's our mission as Christians, is to always keep trying and keep improving and always being kind. That's what sets us apart. We are agents of God's grace in the world, always using our talents for good. No matter how ordinary we seem to be, God always takes what is ordinary and makes it extraordinary. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.